The first thing I noticed when I set foot on that ridge was how the silence felt thick, almost physical. It wasn't the kind of quiet that happens when the world goes to sleep. It was deeper than that, a vast hush that only the deep wilderness can make. I'd been planning this solo trip for nearly a year, poring over maps, calculating water sources and choosing a spot far enough from any trail that even the curious wouldn't stumble upon me. The goal was simple. A full week alone, no voices, no hum of engines, no notifications, no one but me and the wild. I made camp the first night on a small rise that overlooked a valley of spruce and alder. The air smelled faintly of resin and cold stone. I pitched my tent facing east so I could wake to the sun spilling across the valley, and as I boiled water for my first meal, I felt the anticipation of real solitude settle in. The first day was everything I hoped for. Long hours of hiking, gathering fallen branches for the fire, writing in my weathered leather journal, and sitting still until the forest forgot I was there. By the second day, my breathing matched the rhythm of the land. I didn't speak a word, not even to myself. It was the third morning when the quiet changed. I was crouched by the creek, refilling my canteen, when I heard it. A distant hum, faint but mechanical. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a trick of the wind through the ravine. But then it came again, rising and falling with an odd rhythm. I stood up, scanning the sky between the dark boughs of the spruce, and there it was, a small black shape hovering in the distance. A drone. The sound grew louder, bouncing off the granite slopes like an angry hornet. My chest tightened with disbelief. Out here, 10 miles from the nearest dirt road? I had chosen this place precisely to escape such things, yet that whine of spinning rotors kept drawing closer, jittering and dipping as though searching for something. For a moment I wondered if it had lost its owner, if perhaps it was mapping terrain or testing range, but as it passed directly over my camp, its camera glinting in the sun, I felt the unwanted gaze of civilization pierce my solitude. I waited for it to vanish, thinking that surely it would drift away and never return, but it hovered for a few seconds, almost playfully, then zipped down the valley and out of sight. The silence that followed wasn't the same. It felt wounded somehow. I stood there, canteen forgotten in my hand, listening for its echo and realizing that my perfect isolation had been broken by a machine no bigger than my hand. That night, as the stars began to scatter across the black sky, I tried to sink back into the stillness. The fire crackled low, and the scent of pine smoke clung to my clothes, but I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, perhaps miles away, someone was watching through that tiny lens, unaware, or worse, uncaring of the quiet they had shattered. I woke before dawn next morning, long before the sun had climbed over the ridgeline. The air was damp and cool, the forest wrapped in fog that hung low between the trunks. For a few blessed minutes, all I could hear was the slow dripping of condensation from the spruce needles. But then, faint and far off, I caught it again. The mosquito buzz of that drone. My stomach sank. I climbed to the ridge with my binoculars, hoping to spot its operator, but there was no sign of anyone. Just mist, trees, and the distant shimmer of the creek. The drone itself appeared a few minutes later, swooping low over the valley like it was searching for something. It darted between the trees, vanishing and reappearing, and then, to my disbelief, it hovered right over my camp again. I felt a surge of irritation rise through me, hot and sharp. This trip had been about quiet, about confronting myself, not gadgets. I shouted up at the thing before I even realised it. "Hey, go on, get out of here." My voice cracked through the trees, sounding strange after days of silence. The drone tilted slightly, as if studying me, then zipped away again. I stood there fuming, suddenly aware of how ridiculous I must have looked, yelling at a toy. The rest of the morning, I couldn't focus. Every sound set me on edge. The wind in the branches, the splash of the creek, even the creak of my pack straps as I walked. I tried to journal, but my words came out bitter and short. "Why can't people just leave some places alone?" I wrote. "Why do we have to drag the noise everywhere we go?" By afternoon, I decided to hike farther up the valley, away from the drone's path. I followed the creek until it narrowed to a thread between slabs of granite, climbing until my legs burned and my breath came ragged. I finally found a clearing where the air was still and the trees opened to a wide sweep of sky. I pitched my tent again, convinced that no stray machine would find me here. As evening fell, I built a small fire and cooked a simple meal of rice and lentils. The flames danced quietly, and the smell of wood smoke filled the clearing. For a moment, the tension eased. The wilderness has a way of mending things given time. I sat cross-legged and watched the stars appear one by one. Then I heard it again, the faintest hum rising out of the night, like the whisper of some persistent ghost. I closed my eyes, clenched my fists, and exhaled slowly. I'd come here to face myself, not to fight machines, but maybe this was the test I hadn't expected. Solitude, it seemed, was no longer just about being alone. It was about defending the stillness from a world that refused to stop buzzing. The next morning, I woke with a strange determination. Maybe it was stubborn pride, or maybe just the old survival instinct that makes you reclaim what's yours. Either way, I decided I wasn't going to spend the rest of my week hiding from a buzzing toy. I boiled a pot of coffee over the fire, black and bitter, and thought about how I'd come all this way seeking silence, and instead found myself trapped in a small, absurd battle against noise. The forest was cool and dim, sunlight slicing through gaps in the canopy like golden spears. I packed light, just my map, a day's water, and my old pair of binoculars. I wanted to find the operator. Someone had to be flying that thing. I figured if I followed the valley downstream, I might stumble onto whoever was camping close enough to control it. The creek led me through thickets of willow and alder, then opened into a low meadow dotted with wildflowers. The hum of insects filled the air, and for a while I almost forgot about the drone. Then, just as I crossed the meadow, I heard it again, closer this time. The sound rose and fell as the drone darted along the tree line. I ducked instinctively, my heart pounding in a ridiculous mix of fear and frustration. Following its path, I moved carefully along the edge of the forest until I caught sight of a clearing about 100 yards ahead. There, in the sunlight, was a figure. A young man, maybe mid-20s, wearing a ball cap and a bright orange jacket. He had a folding chair set up beside a small camp stove, a tablet in his lap, and the drone's controller in his hands. I froze, watching him make the little machine swoop and spin through the air. He was grinning, completely unaware of the intrusion he was causing. For a long moment, I just stood there. Part of me wanted to march straight over, tell him exactly what he was ruining. But another part of me hesitated. He wasn't being malicious. He was probably just out here enjoying his own version of wilderness, filtered through the lens of a camera and the hum of propellers. Still, I couldn't shake the anger that had been building since that first morning. I stepped into the clearing, the crunch of dry twigs underfoot startling him. He turned, startled, and nearly dropped the controller. The drone wobbled in the air above us. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You realize you're flying that thing over my camp?" He blinked, confused. Sorry, man. I didn't know anyone else was out here. I'm just filming some shots for my channel." His words hung there, a reminder of everything I'd tried to leave behind. A channel, a digital world, loud and endless, now bleeding into the heart of silence. I took a slow breath, trying to decide what kind of man I wanted to be in that moment, the angry hermit or the one who still believed that quiet could be chosen, even in the noise. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but I forced it down, steadying my breath. "This whole basin's empty for miles," I said. "You picked the one spot with another person in it." He looked genuinely apologetic, though awkward about it, glancing from his drone back to me. Man, I swear I didn't know. I didn't think anyone came this far out. The drone still hovered between us, humming like an irritated hornet. "I'll pull it back right now." He tapped at the controller, and the thing obediently whined skyward, vanishing into a pinprick of sunlight. For a moment I felt a flicker of relief, but also a strange hollowness. like the silence that followed wasn't the same as before. It wasn't wild anymore. It was negotiated. We stood there for a beat that stretched too long. I noticed the pile of his gear. Bright nylon tent, solar panel, 2 camera rigs, enough supplies to last a weekend, but not much longer. "You camping out here alone?" I asked, half curious, half making sure he wasn't planning to turn the place into a film set. He nodded. "Just a couple nights. I wanted to get some sunrise footage and maybe a time lapse. You know, untouched wilderness and all that." He chuckled nervously. That phrase, untouched wilderness, nearly made me laugh. I had to bite back a bitter reply. Instead, I said, "Well, it's not untouched if you're flying a drone over it." He winced, looking at the ground. I sighed. "Look, I get it. You didn't mean harm, just maybe keep it grounded while I'm still around. Some of us come here to hear the wind, not motors." He nodded quickly. Yeah, of course, I'll keep it packed up." I thanked him, though the words came out tight, and turned back toward my camp. The forest swallowed me up again, but my peace didn't return with it. My own voice had sounded strange to me, sharp, almost territorial. I'd come here to escape the noise of people, and here I was, adding my own to the mix. Back at camp, I sat by the creek, trying to let the steady gurgle rinse the tension from my thoughts. I told myself the problem was solved, the drone grounded, the silence restored. Yet, as the afternoon sun slanted through the trees, I couldn't stop replaying the look on his face. Embarrassed, maybe even a little scared. He was just another person trying to find meaning out here, in his own way. When evening came, I built my fire small and quiet. The smoke rose straight into the still air. For a long while, I just stared into the flames, feeling that familiar ache of solitude settle back in. Only this time, it wasn't the peaceful kind. It was heavier, burdened by the reminder that even in the middle of nowhere, other lives and other noises find you. That night, I didn't sleep much. The forest was calm, the stars scattered thick as salt above the ridge, yet my mind wouldn't still. I lay listening to the soft whisper of wind in the spruce, wondering if the young man was somewhere beyond the trees doing the same. The thought unsettled me in ways I hadn't expected. I'd wanted to be alone, to listen until I could hear my own thoughts echoing back. But now that I'd reclaimed the silence, it felt strangely hollow. The solitude I'd once craved had been dented, and no amount of distance could make it new again. Just before dawn, I left my tent and wandered down to the creek. Mist rose off the water in pale ribbons. I crouched on the bank and trailed my fingers through the current cold enough to sting. Somewhere upstream, a loon called, that long, mournful sound that seems to belong to both this world and another. I thought about how everything in the wilderness moves in circles, the rivers flow, the seasons turn, even the way peace comes and goes. Maybe my solitude wasn't meant to be absolute. Maybe it never really was. Later, while packing camp, I heard footsteps. Soft ones, hesitant. When I looked up, there he was again, the young man from the clearing, standing a few yards away, his orange jacket bright against the grey morning. He gave a small wave. "I just wanted to say thanks," he said quietly, "for not chewing me out worse. I shut everything down. I think I get what you meant about the noise." I smiled faintly, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "We all come out here chasing something," I said. "Just remember to listen for it, instead of trying to capture it." He nodded, gave a small, respectful smile and disappeared back through the trees. The silence that followed him felt different this time. Not broken, but shared, like a truce between two kinds of seekers. When I finally shouldered my pack and began the long trek back toward the world, I paused one last time at the ridge. The valley stretched wide and green beneath the morning sun, dew catching the light like shards of glass. I breathed it all in, the resin of pine, the damp moss, the faint scent of wood smoke clinging to my sleeves. Maybe solitude wasn't about being untouched by others after all. Maybe it was about learning to keep your own stillness even when something or someone brushes against it. As I descended into the trees, the forest swallowed me again, and the quiet returned. Not perfect, not pure, but real enough to carry home.